Good morning and welcome to Caretaker's Corner, where we discuss everything that has to do with taking care of your elderly disabled parents, disabled spouse, and your adult disabled children. My name is CJ, and I am hopefully your guide on this journey. And today I am going to do a video that's kind of like a combination of a couple of my subjects, but it's on scams, specifically scams that is around the death of a loved one. Now, when my dad died a few years ago, actually, I guess it was about a year and a half ago, it just seems a lot longer, I got a lot of mail that was obviously scams that I threw away because I was perfectly aware what my dad's situations were, where his bills were with, and all of his open accounts. So I didn't have to worry about, them sending, hey, you owe this, or hey, we realize that, and it all came to the estate of my dad's name. And right there is a big deal because you know that unless it's somebody that you've contacted, you should know the open accounts. I've always suggested you have a list of open accounts. But you get a lot of stuff. My mom recently, and my mom has been getting a lot of these. And I look at her and I said, well, do they tell you what? Because one of them is just we're a debt collecting company for the estate of my stepdad. And we are trying to collect a bill, but it didn't say what the account number was. It didn't say what the bill was. Didn't give an amount or anything. And I told Mom, chuck it. It is a scam. If it were legitimate, they would have provided information for the estate to handle. And it doesn't just stop with bills. I mean, these, for lack of a better term in today's society, these cockroaches come out of everywhere. And it goes on with other stuff like memory stuff. So somebody sent me a book that was like, The Life of Your Dad, and you can order this completed. And, it was a publicity book. It had his name on it and a way that they could write the story of his life if you wanted to have that as a memory. And I mean, I received multiple different ways of memorializing my dad, like naming a star after him, and for only half of his inheritance, half of his estate, you could buy a star and have it named after your dad. There is all sorts of just scams. I mean, if there is a way they can take your money, they are going to try and do it. And what really makes me mad about this situation is they're taking advantage of people at their weakest. My mom has called me crying multiple times because of the different people saying that there were open accounts in his name and that she has to pay him or they're going to take her to court. And we go through and look, and there is nothing anywhere in the house that shows there is an account with this company. My mom and stepdad were together for 30 years, so, everything within the last 30 years she had an idea about. Some things she's still finding that it's like, okay, something about a coat the other day she found a bill for, and she contacted them to let the company know that he had passed away and everything. But I mean, insurance companies have been calling saying, hey, you can, and she's getting more spam over signing up for insurance and life insurance and health insurance. And if it's an insurance lately, she's been getting phone calls for it. She's been getting mail for it. She's been getting email for it, both in her name and in my stepdad's name. There's been a noticeable uptick in the insurance mail, which she already, being on Social Security and 72, gets a lot of that anyway, because for some reason everybody tries to get you on that one once you get past a certain age. And there's just no stopping it. I mean, I tell her, if they're trying to say that they're going to take you to court, tell them to give you your information. Tell them you want the information for the account, you want to know when the bill was from, you want to know how much the bill is, and you want to know what it was for. All right? Then, if they can't give you that information, try and get their contact information and report them to the state attorney. And I believe that you report that to the state attorney general and let them take care of it, because that's part of their job. They're supposed to track down scams and get rid, prosecute them to the best of their ability. Like I said, in my case, with my dad, I just threw everything away because I was perfectly aware they were scams, and I didn't even think that this one would come back to haunt me later with this situation. And, she is doing well, but she's still in a very emotional state, and people calling and trying to threaten her with something that doesn't exist, because there is no estate of my stepdad. There's nothing. But they keep trying to call and say, well, we're going to take you to court, but they're not providing information. And like I said, the one company was just completely, and I mean, she was scared to death, but then she called. I said, call an attorney, an estate attorney, and usually you can talk to them initially, get a consultation without a cost. I said, call and ask them what they think. And everybody did agree it was a scam register, it was a scam letter. But these are things I want to make you all aware of, because you know how I feel about the scams anyway. They're wrong. You're taking hardworking people's money from them, and I have a problem with that. But I really, really, really have a problem with taking advantage of anybody who is in an extreme emotional state of having lost a loved one, and in this case, a life partner. They were together for 30 years, everybody. It's a long time. And she's never lived alone. So she's having to process all of this. And then on top of that, people are calling and threatening her. People that actually don't have any right to call and threaten her. They're just trying to scare her into giving them her hard-earned money. And I don't care who you are. Nobody deserves that. When you get into retirement, you've planned. I mean, in this case, they didn't, but like in my case, I'm trying to plan for retirement. And the idea that somebody would try and take advantage of that and take my hard-earned money would piss me off to no end, and it pisses me off when I see it happening to others. You get people who are already in cognitive decline, possibly, usually. They're in health decline. And then on top of that, they're heartbroken. They're dealing with the grieving process, and then you come in and you start throwing this at them. And it can confuse a lot of people, especially in your elderly and disabled group. And I know that with Barbara, sometimes simple things can get a little bit confusing for her now with all the medication she's on. And she's very careful about watching, because they are out there left and right. Like I said, the most recent one Mom's been, we've been talking about has to do with insurance and needing insurance on her car because the warranty has run out. And I'm like, well, and she's like, oh, well, I'll call this company. And I'm like, you need to check these companies, because they're not all legitimate. Now, there are some very legitimate companies out there, but there are also some that are just there to take advantage of you. And so I always, tell everybody, anytime you're getting involved in something like that, be sure and do research. Check with the BBB, check with the, I guess you can't really check with the consumer group anymore, huh? And there's going to be a lot worse scams out there now that they have done away with the consumer credit, or the consumer group that, with the government, that was supposed to, protect our elderly and disabled from these scams. you've got to try. I mean, it's hard to try and explain to your elderly that these are scams because they look official. I mean, they look like they're legitimate and like they're official. And all I can say is just start asking for information because they don't want to give you information. And the more information you ask for that they're not giving, the more it's a scam. My dad had a great way of dealing with them. He was deaf, and so his TV was always turned up really, really loud anyway, so he would just unmute the TV and let the person keep talking while the TV just kept going. He just had fun with them. But they take people for a lot of money. And they take elderly people who are on a budget and don't have the money to give. And then your elderly don't want to ask for help because they feel like they feel ashamed because they were taken advantage of. And it's not their fault. These people are very professional about this. They do their job to try and get as much money out of people as they can. And they come off as very, very professional. So, once again, I hate to say that there are more scams out there, but I'm going to have to say I think these scams really piss me off more than any of them. So, protect your family. Try and have the talks with them. Make sure that, especially if it's an elderly person, make sure that they're taking good care of their money. If you're on their accounts, just scan the account occasionally. I mean, like with Dad, I would go on his account every so often and just make sure there wasn't anything too weird going on. And believe it or not, occasionally there was. I mean, my dad was a highly intelligent individual, but he got taken advantage of a couple of times. And luckily he didn't lose any money, but I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, hey, the government owes you money and they send you this check and, it looks official and everything, and it's not. And so those are just some of them that they use to get the elderly, especially when they're brokenhearted. So just another thing to, I guess, more me rant about and hopefully provide you with some information, because this affects everybody in the family. When your elderly get taken advantage of, you have to try and help come up with the money. You have to help them try and sort it out. And then it takes time away from what other stuff that you need to be doing. It also makes their life worse. It makes their health worse because it affects them mentally. Anything that affects you mentally and emotionally affects you physically. So I hope that this will help you out, and I hate to have to put this one out there because it's, like I said, it just pisses me off. But I hope you have a great day, and I will see you here next Sunday. So I hope you had a happy Halloween, and be good. Love you guys. Bye-bye.